We've taken a look at using the built-in 3D shadow function in Anime Studio Pro and how to modify that a little bit to cast shadows different directions so they're not always being cast directly like the light is right with the Z-axis of the camera. What we'll look at in this movie is an advanced way to combine that with some other effect capabilities that Anime Studio Pro has to create what we see in front of us. I have simply loaded a scene with the default plant that comes with Anime Studio Pro. I have turned on the layer 3D shadow, which we see at the bottom here, and then skewed it by a value of 2, which allows us to be cast off to one side instead of directly behind the character. However, the advanced part comes in with the fact that we're adding a shadow to the wall that's behind it, or what appears to be a wall. So we are defining 3D shapes here that really don't exist. Everything is actually on a totally flat plane, and we're just faking it. So let's take a look how to use some of the built-in complex functions of Anime to pull off a visual trick like this. I'll go ahead and close this. We have our basic plant. Let's look at the layer construction of what's going on. I have a group, which is front plant here, and then I have a little area called masking area that is turned on behind that. The reason I've done this, and let me highlight the masking area, is so that when the shadow is automatically cast coming back here, I can terminate that shadow at a pre-defined area right here, which happens to also be the line of the base of the wall. Now, we'll see back here that we've got a second plant going on. This only works after you have animated the primary element of the scene, or elements if you're using more than one. So what we've done here, and you can tell from the icon here in the layers palette, is that the front plant, I have gone ahead and masked this layer. The carnivorous plant layer has actually just been duplicated. There's already pre-built animation into it. So if I scrub the timeline, we'll notice both plants working simultaneously together. That's because they're using the exact same keyframes as they work. We'll examine an option we haven't played with yet for the Carnivorous Plant 2, which happens to be the shadow version back here. Let me select that layer. You can see all the keyframes right now, and I'll go ahead and double click on that to call up the layer options. We have an option called colorizing, which can be animated if you want, but only if you actually engage the little tick box here for animate layer effects. It's being applied to an animated layer, so by default you'll see this effect moving with whatever's moving on the layer. The animated layer effects for the colorizing only works if you want to change some of the values that come with it. Now let me go ahead and click on the color selector so we can see what's going on. The colorizing feature goes ahead and chooses whatever color you pick and then applies a layer of transparency to that. And I should say the entire layer becomes transparent. So this colorizing, it doesn't care what color the rest of the object is. Right now we've got this light gray chosen. The plant's made up of a ton of different colors. This layer setting overrides all of that and turns it to a single monochromatic color, which is great. The next thing I've done is I have matched the blur radius of this entire layer to match the blur radius of the 3D shadow, which happened to be a factor of 3. If I choose cancel right here, we double click on the carnivorous plant layer itself. We get our options and go to shadows. We'll notice that the 3D shadow also has a blur radius here of 3. So we've got some harmony between those two. I'll click cancel right here. So if we do a render real quickly at this particular time frame 0, then what we'll see is a complex interaction between masked layers and layers that have special effects applied. Now you'll probably notice if you're paying close attention that the leaf right here, the primary leaf, you see actually not match the shadow perfectly. And that's done on purpose. The nice thing with the wall here is that I can move it down if I want to separate and create distance, or I can go ahead here at time frame 0 and move the actual carnivorous plant shadow itself. So if I want it to line up a little bit more, it's as simple as moving the object at timeline 0. Now we can go ahead and do another quick render and see how that matches up. You may want to pull this to the side a little bit and then down some. So we can make the shadows match up and become harmonious with the scene right here. Go ahead and move this back and down just a little bit. And then we'll choose our preview render one more time. This is getting fairly close here. So we could get ready to animate it. Now, here is something else that would need to take place using a function like this. If you've played this automatic animation before as it loads in, you'll notice that we get our little plant bopping around. It's kind of waiting for the fly that we could put in the scene that is not here. But there comes a point where it goes ahead and makes this huge lunge for the fly. It's over-exaggeration. It's everything that an animation should be. But we've got a little issue here. If I highlight the masking area, we'll notice that the front plant here is going into the masked off area. So if we happen to do a quick preview render, we'll see that we have missing plant in the area right here. That's really, really easily fixable, but it's fixable only by animating this masking shape, which we can do very easily by simply moving the points over time. So this transitory effect can be modified. We create two layers, the first or primary animated layer. We create a second layer, which is the shadow. We do some special masking. We apply that colorizing feature of the layer. And this is how you get some of those advanced masking capabilities and shadow capabilities inside Anime Studio Pro.